So Shri, thank you so much for joining us today. Really appreciate your participation. How are you?
I'm doing fine, Pawan. Thank you for having me here. I'm happy to be here.
You have extensive background working with Salesforce CRM and all the different bells and whistles that come with implementation with various organizations. Can you give us a bit of a background in terms of your professional journey starting with 2008, 2009?
Yeah, sure. Going back on my journey, I started myself as a technical developer. And then initially, this goes back 15 years back, I would say, in my journey, where I started my first Salesforce implementation. I was doing administration of Salesforce when I started. And then slowly I moved into the manager role and then leading teams and then doing a lot of digital transformation projects. As part of that, I would say I have done a lot on the Sales Cloud and Service Cloud, those type of implementations. Almost in every company, they go with Sales Cloud. But see, coming to quote to cash process, I would say almost like this is my fifth CPQ or like quote to cash implementation. I have done a lot of projects with Salesforce and then also NetSuite and then financial applications too, working in different industries. Like when I was in Google, I was specifically focused on Sales Cloud and Service Cloud implementation and then maintaining the whole Google Glass project. After working in bigger companies, I also wanted to explore like the small industries or the startup to mid-sized companies, where I moved to Zoom and then UserTesting is my current company, where I was able to do a lot of transformational things. That was the best thing I liked about not being in a bigger company to moving into the small size to mid-sized growing companies.
Lending to transformational change is exciting and it's got to be extremely rewarding. And it looks like throughout your journey, you've had a lot of those opportunities to kind of develop and build. Implementation is just a crux of that. If you were to look back on your professional experience and maybe looking at a specific implementation that was outstanding in your mind for whatever reason, can you kind of talk through maybe an experience that you'd like to share?
I would say, in my experience, I have done multiple transformations, and some of them were really good. But I still would say the current projects which I have delivered in user testing is my best experiences, because there was a short timeline we were doing, and then we were trying to do a lot at one time. I would say this is a true digital transformation, because within 9 months, I was able to roll out a whole code to cash using Salesforce CPQ and then Salesforce billing. But also we did an ERP implementation. We moved to NetSuite and then also rolled out Coupa. So in such a short time period, rolling out so many projects successfully is definitely an inspirational thing for me.
For sure. And before we kind of go into the nitty gritty of that and try to unpack it a little bit, why don't you tell us a little bit about what user testing is all about in terms of the company and the service it provides?
So currently user testing is 700 plus employees, and then we're growing. Revenue was 100 million plus ARR in May of 2020. And we are a customer experience CX space, and the product is really good, like where user testing is a video first platform where enabling organizations to see and hear the experiences of real people as they engage with your products, design apps, or anything you do. That's actually very interesting to me also when I joined user testing. So that's what user testing helps us do.
You're aiding in like the UI UX development essentially, and like the feedback kind of processes that a lot of companies have in terms of having some facial recognition cues and so on and so forth.
Take your product or even a website or anything you built, and then you wanted to get real people feedback, you use user testing platform for that.
Beautiful. And you've been there for how long now?
I would say 1.5 years.
So you mentioned that it's 100 million ARR in 2020. What type of growth velocity is that year over year for the last, let's say, 3 to 5 years, if you were to guess?
I think we are growing 30 to 40% plus year over year.
Yeah, so quite a bit. It's fast.
It is fast growing company.
You mentioned Google Glass being one of the projects that you're onboarded with. Is this a small company for you, or is this a large company for you, or does this sit right in your sweet spot?
I would say it's my sweet spot, or a mid-sized company. As I was saying, like NetApp and then Google and FireEye, all of those were, I would say, big companies.
Yeah.
Where in Google Glass also it was interesting, since even though Google is a massive company, the Google Glass project was a smaller piece of it, right? Like one product, and you're helping manage the systems to roll out, just maintain that project. That was still like a small piece of it, I felt. But in FireEye or in NetApp, I used to feel is, even though I rolled out the projects, is like already the processes are established and things are already there. You're just like rolling out the projects and then making improvements. Whereas when I joined user testing, the big difference was I'm able to really roll out the processes and then really bring the change to the company, not just the systems rollout, but also all of those things, which makes it very interesting.
What is your process? I mean, oftentimes when you talk about building systems and transformation, there's a lot of internal galvanization around your ideas that need to be done. There's a lot of user testing that needs to be done, let's say, but internally, right? Like what you really need to do your due diligence. What's your process behind kind of vetting out solutions and really getting to a point where you're investing your time and your bandwidth and your team's time and bandwidth on a particular implementation?
My style is I'm always about understanding what users' pain points are. Like usually try to really meet with different teams, Pavan. And then I wanted to see really where the main pain points lie within the organizations. Take sales team, marketing, or customer success or professional services, any team within the organization, because IT and systems touches everything, right?
Yeah.
So I actually kind of do that process. And then when I'm really identifying where the more manual steps are happening and where the main pain points are there, prioritizing those projects. That's what I did when I joined user testing in 2020. And these were the top projects where so many manual hours were spent and so many people were manually investing. Still the efficiencies was not there, because manually when people are doing, all of us make mistakes, right? It's not anyone. So that was the big thing. And then also, where can I add a huge value for the company first? So quote to cash was like slowing down our sales cycle. It was also slowing down our accounting closing process. They're investing so many headcounts and then so many manual hours on that. So I thought, okay, this is the first thing I wanted to pick and then automate. I was thinking, as the company is growing, within the scalability perspective, I think going to NetSuite for this size of the company is the best thing. So we were evaluating other things. ERP, I would say, since I have done enough implementations and research in this space already, NetSuite is the sweet spot. Unless you're like a massive company, you're not thinking of Oracle, right? So that's why that was an easy choice. But when it came to like CPQ and billing projects, we did evaluate like Zora and other competitive tools. We took the problem. I always take the problem and then look for all the different solutions which would be closest to our business model. That is the way I went with Salesforce CPQ and billing. And on the billing side though, the big reason why we went with Salesforce billing was in user testing, we rolled out usage-based pricing model just last year. And the most closest model, which was helping, closest system, which was helping with usage-based pricing, was Salesforce billing. That was also another reason why we went with Salesforce billing.
What are some like kind of consistencies around red flags that you've kind of identified where if you run into XYZ, you kind of move on from the due diligence process with a certain solution or provider?
I would say first, for any leader, you're going with code to cash or any implementation process. First, you have to identify what requirements you're trying to solve. Not maybe full nitty-gritty details, but high level, you should know really the scope of what your business is really wanting to really achieve with this implementation. When you get that, I think when you go to the solution, first you have to make sure, out of the requirements, is this solution giving you 80+%? In my opinion, Pawan, there is no 100% perfect solution out there. No system is doing that. Is it checking 80% of your problems? And then are you able to really customize that application to meet your needs? Second thing always is obviously pricing. Every CFO is interested in pricing. Why would you want to pay more, right? Which one is really optimal on your pricing thing? And third thing, I think, is it scalable enough? That's all. Is that so system will take your company for 5 years, or is it going to only scale for a year or two? Then I think you're ripping and replacing again. So those are the three things I always keep in mind when I'm doing any implementation or any business process I'm automating.
Thank you for the insight. So now let's take it to Nicole. How were you introduced to the company? And can you talk about a little bit of that early journey of coordinating with them?
Yeah, no, I think I can certainly share. So we started with a different partner on the CPQ journey. Our CPQ experience was painful with the vendor. And then I have to say, this is an important thing I wanted to share, is I was always thinking that quote to cash should be one partner, no matter what you're going with, if it's the same platform, especially. So CPQ and billing should be with one partner. And then I did evaluate before signing up with the first partner, but I walked into it already, and then there was some prior commitments, so didn't have enough time to really do complete due diligence. But I heard good things about it, and then we went with it. But I think whenever we are going with any partner, this is what I wanted to give as an insight to anyone. Never sign up for joint delivery model. Never do that. That's an important lesson I learned in my experience too. Plus, the other thing is, before signing up with any partner too, NeoCall or any other partner, I would say make sure you have your requirements from your business stakeholders. So you are actually talking with this partner and going through all the requirements. Can these be delivered, and is this the right things, and then did we miss anything? That those are the things you have to do before you signing up with a partner. In CPQ experience, what I have seen is communication was lacking, and then there was no ownership, and then the third thing we were missing is the change management was very poor. So those were the things were impacted us really bad in the CPQ implementation. So I was debating that to stick with the same partner or to move. But then I think by the time we went live with CPQ, there was no way we were going to stick with the same partner. So then I went back to actually Salesforce. Even though I was doing my research, I was asking them that you guys recommended, then how come this is so bad experience? And then Salesforce actually recommended us NeoCall team.
Mm-hmm.
So I did the same things when I first got introduction to NeoCall. Since I had so painful experience, I was making sure, do this partner have good change management process? Is their communication effective? And then how transparent are they going to be in giving us all the insights? And I did give the heads up. Like Thane was the person I talked to from NeoCall, and then one more person, Anthony, I think. I was telling them, these are the important things for me when I'm working with any partner on the billing project, because we have very short timeline. We have to deliver. We can't really move in the timeline. And can we deliver these successfully? So having the requirement study and then giving the expectations beforehand, and then NeoCall walking us through all of those things and then giving that comfort made me sign with NeoCall.
That's interesting because, going from, I guess, a not so fruitful relationship to finding another solution provider, I'm assuming that your flexibility was pretty short. So I'm assuming coming into the conversation with Dana, whoever might have been on NeoCall's team, it probably wasn't an easy task for them to overcome some of your expectations or your doubts. So that's interesting. Do you remember any of kind of like that early communication of like, were there specific sentiments that surfaced that made you confident in the process beyond the product?
I'm again going back to 2 points. One was the change management process, because that was an overkill for us. I asked them, and the NeoCall was like, Flossom, this is how we do it, and this is all the steps. Thane was giving me that information, which made me feel very comfortable. The other important thing was, I think I have to tell a little more detail here, Pawan, is we did NetSuite, Coupa, and then billing and ARM rollout at the same time. From June to September, we did together. So we were working with 3 different partners, because Coupa was a different partner. Billing and ARM implementation was NeoCall, and NetSuite was a different partner. And we had to make sure all 3 partners are syncing every week and making sure that everyone are aligned on the things. Otherwise, things will fall apart very easily, right? These were all very critical projects. My idea behind this was, I didn't wanted ARM implementation to be done by NetSuite implementation partners. The reason for that was, whoever was doing billing project, they are actually creating the invoices and then maintaining and generating all of that process, right? Like the order to cash process. I wanted them to really own the ARM implementation, own the integration, and take everything end to end, and then help revenue recognize. That was my idea behind it. That's why I'm like, this whole process is going to be owned by one partner. And then I was asking NeoCall all those questions. And then I think we also had some almost 2 or 3 to 4 sessions with the business stakeholders, and then ask them to really give the rev rec requirements and then billing requirements, everything. And then once we felt comfortable, we signed the deal with NeoCall.
Got it. And how long ago was this?
This was in June.
In June of this year?
June of this year.
Unbelievable. Now, can you tell me a little bit about what you set out to accomplish at the beginning and where you are today?
I would say we are in a great place today because we did roll out all of these projects, billing using MuleSoft, the integration, all the data is flowing into NetSuite. Plus, we have done ARM implementation. So the best part, again, going back to NeoCall, is Vincent, our project manager, was amazing. Whenever there was red flags or he was feeling an issue, he would immediately Slack me and he would let me know, saying that, Shri, I think I'm seeing risk in the project, and then I need your, and then we would immediately chat the same day. I would work with the business stakeholders, or if it's my team, we would find a way, like whatever is the solution, and then move on with it. Plus, I think the change management process, because of the planning, and then we implemented Flossom, it worked out very well that CPQ rollout, when we went live, it took almost 2 days from Friday till Saturday night to deploy, where billing project we were able to deploy within few hours on Friday evening, and we even did the smoke test, and then we were able to go and then do other things. So that was a huge improvement for me. And then I was very confident also the way they were planning and preparing those things. So I would say kudos to the NeoCall.
Excellent. So, I mean, essentially, they provided like a bridge, right, between your SF or Salesforce billing and NetSuite ARM. That's not an easy bridge. It's a delicate one.
It's a delicate one.
Yeah, and how has that been flowing since?
I think there were only few errors which we are fixing now, but I won't say it's not a significant issue or like there was a backlog or things are not flowing. Those things I haven't seen so far. NeoCall has a very good technical team. Daryl, who has done ARM implementation, he listens. First of all, he listens to what business is asking for and then always comes up with solutions. Wandu is an amazing integration person too. So my team actually learned a lot from him on how to manage the integration.
Okay, so I want to play a little bit of a game, which is like, expectations versus reality on several different topics. So if you don't mind indulging me, so you mentioned a little bit about the team communication, but expectations meaning going into the relationship at the time of signing, and then versus the reality of how things unfolded. So let's talk about communications. You mentioned they're strong communicators. Was that what you were expecting going into it? And how have they delivered? And if not, how have they not delivered?
I would say because of my previous experience, I did not have high expectations, honestly. I was like, if we can meet these milestones successfully, and then if I have some effective communication and we can deploy the project. So I went with like only low expectations, honestly. But NeoCall actually went above, and I talked with my stakeholders like every few weeks, and they were like, Shri, it's a night and day difference. Like we are seeing like the way things used to happen then versus now, like it's a big difference. And the other thing is, there were some requirements changed from our end. I won't say like we stick with exactly whatever we wrote down in SOW. And there were some critical requirements. Unless those were tweaked or those requirements, we had to make those adjustments. Business was not ready to sign off on the UAT. So then NeoCall accommodated those things. I think that flexibility is very important because these are big projects, and no matter how much planning you do, even the business stakeholders, we can't even blame them. They can't really think of every requirement at the time of SOW, right? When we go into the details, that's when I think things like, oh, I think this is how the revenue recognition should work, or this is how my billing or invoicing payment term should work. So some things will be missed, and I think NeoCall's flexibility of accommodating those things was very helpful. And in fact, the other important thing, in my entire career, no partner actually told me this, I would say, is like Vincent, initially he would say, Shri, I think we are actually running under the hours. I think we have more hours to save and then we can do more scope. That never came from a partner in my lifetime. So that's an impressive way of really gaining your customers, I would say, or whatever they have done. So.
I've done several hundred conversations that relate to innovation. I'll say that is pretty outstanding. I'm wondering about so the communication flow. Of course, you mentioned that they exceeded on expectations, which happened to be quite low, but
still exceeded.
but can we talk about the stack that they built for communication processes? Like, were you using messaging apps like Slack? Are you using Basecamp? Were they weekly touch bases? Like, what kind of did that feel and look like?
We have an external Slack channel and then internal Slack channel where we used for internal, but external Slack channel included NeoCall and then NetSuite partner also because it touches NetSuite too. But I think they were very effective. As I said, Vincent as a PM, he was raising issues immediately. And then also when our business stakeholders were raising issues, that was one thing. And then every weekly we had a touch point where with NeoCall and the other partners and stakeholders, we were meeting for an hour and we were making sure how the project is tracking on the timeline. Plus daily stand-ups we had since we started the development. I think those were effective. If something missed out, I was able to reach out to Vincent or even in fact David got introduced to me maybe a month back or month and a half now. I don't remember. But since I'm talking with David also, I feel so comfortable. Like I can reach out to NeoCall team and then I know I'm 100% sure I'll get a response, either positive or negative, or if it's possible or not possible, whatever that is. That transparency, I trust the NeoCall team now.
Nice. And now going back to expectations versus reality, you touched a little bit on implementation timeline. What were the expectation going in, and then how did that compare to reality?
So I would say we met the timeline because timeline was a big thing for us. We had to really, because of multiple projects we are doing at the same time, we had to align with NetSuite implementation and we had to go by September. When we started the project in June, we had to go live in September. There was no room for really increasing the timeline or doing things. That's where I think we had one or two times we had to really think of trade-offs. And I would say ARM probably we missed by 2 weeks. Even initially we thought billing and ARM will go live the first week of September, but it went like third week of September. But that was our decision too, because I think we didn't have, because of the short time frame. If you can think about Pawan, like that 3 to 4 months is like a very short time frame for these big implementations. And then we were trying to test a lot of the things. Business didn't have enough time to validate also, and they were not confident enough to sign off on it. And I was also feeling like, why are we rushing the ARM piece of it? Because we know we are not going to use it immediately. We actually separated, and then we did like, okay, billing and this going live, and then connect to Sandbox. So they still do the testing. And then in 2 weeks, we sign off and then do the RevRec, like ARM go live. And that worked out really well.
All right, good deal. I mean, look, with all things said and done, that seems it pretty much matched what you were hoping for. So that's really nice. And now, you had mentioned in your pre-screening, you look for 80%, I guess, suitability. In terms of efficacy, where did this kind of lie in terms of what you were expecting versus what you received?
I think it was there. I would say we went with 80% of the requirements with that accommodation of getting more requirements. And in between, there were new things came up. That was a fact I was bringing up, Pawan. There was extra hours, and then like NeoCall happily took, and then they did it. But even if they didn't have that, I think they would have come to us and then gave us the right expectations on this is feasible and this is not feasible and what can be done, which would have helped us deliver it successfully. But we were able to accommodate everything. 80% was there, and then even more, I think, because they accommodated the additional new requirements. I would say more than 90% they came. So.
Wow. And, if you were to stay on the efficacy kind of topic, how are you positioned as a company as a result from when you started in June to where we are today, which is only October? While this is recorded, I should mention this is October of 2021. This is hardly 4 months. In terms of how you're platformed for the future now, what's the shift been?
I would say huge shift on both like the sales cycle and then the closing process. I was saying we were like 7 to 10 business days of closing. It came to 3 to 5 business days with this automation tools. That's a huge thing, I would say. And then for the sales team and deal desk team also, a lot of things were manually they were entering with the CPQ and this project. That's a huge improvement.
No, that's great. Well, I'm excited to see where it goes. I mean, you're already tracking on a 40% growth year over year, and I would expect that with those sorts of efficiencies built in, that could have a good potential to impact that velocity. So that's really exciting. In terms of any other results that are directly related to this implementation, can you talk through any of that? Is there anything else beyond kind of the efficiency over, let's say, the timeline of close that you are looking as a KPI?
No, I would say these were like key automations I was planning to do because these systems were completely manual. We were doing every invoice was manually created. until billing went live. That was like a huge manual effort. Plus, all of our reporting was relied on that manual entries and manual things we were doing with CPQ and billing. All of those are automated too now. I would say we have done very critical business process automation as part of these two projects, which will help us to go to the next level. Like what next things I wanted to focus for the company. It's like a stepping stone for me. And this was like a base level I needed to even go to that next level.
That's really good to hear. Now, if you were approached by, let's say, somebody that wanted a recommendation for a solution that Neocall could fit or provide, what's the general reaction for you?
I would say I strongly recommend Neocall because in this space, first of all, in CPQ and billing space, we all know there are very few partners who are actually doing this like successfully implementing Salesforce CPQ and billing. And that I think the way they have handled a NetSuite integration and then ARM revenue recognition implementation, I would strongly recommend Neocall to any customer.
Excellent. Okay, that's what I have for today. I definitely got a nice kind of peek under the process, which is always nice to receive from experts like yourself. So truly, truly appreciate your time and your insights.
Thank you so much, Pawan.